exercise, you're going to build a cell phone most of you are probably going to use, or you can use an old-fashioned telephone. Start always with the base of your object, so the background. So we're going to go to Insert, and from the Insert ribbon, we're going to use a shape. Now you can use a regular rectangle, or a rounded rectangle might be a better idea. Try to use as much of your documents as possible so that we can see very clearly what it is you're trying to draw. And then next would be probably your screen, and from there you can maybe do a square one. I'm going to want to see some alignment in this exercise, so I want this to be perfectly centered to your phone. So in order to select both, you have to put your shift key down, click on the main object, and now I've got both of them selected. Your alignment button is right here. Okay, so hit that little button, and here I want these to be aligned center. So now the screen is perfectly aligned in the middle of my phone. Next, of course, probably be the buttons. Back to Insert, I guess, and Shapes. Again, choose whatever shape you want for your buttons. If you want circles or ovals or squares or rounded rectangles, it's up to you. I would highly recommend, though, once you have one in, rather than try to repeat that, I would simply copy and paste that object several times. And here I'm using my Control button. And since I have a row of 4, I can select all 4. I use my Shift key to do that, and now I'm using my Control key to copy those. So now I've probably got all the buttons I need for my cell phone. You can add extra buttons, of course, depending on what it is you want them to do. Next, more on alignment. So I want this, of course, column to be aligned. So I would select every object in that column, and I would go to Align, and maybe Left. And I would want to do the same thing again. Now remember, F4 means whatever I just did, do again. So I'm going to hit F4 right now. So it aligned left for me that quickly. And again, F4. So now those are perfectly aligned to one another. The other thing you may want to do, you're of course going to want to make sure these are all aligned top, right? So, and you'll come back here and align top, and F4, and F4, and F4. Next, you're able to distribute these in such a way that the space in between is equal. And it's the same button here, but instead of align, we're going to say distribute. Okay? And here, we're distributing horizontally. So you see how it changed subtly? And it needed to because they weren't separated properly. So I would hit F4 again. So I'll be looking for this in your final product to make sure that your cells look fine, or your phones look fine, and that everything is distributed properly and lined up properly. So I'm looking for proper alignment and proper distribution. So here we're going to distribute vertically, and you see it also changed just subtly. So again, I'm using my Shift key to select several objects at the same time. I also want you to know that you can use a different key to select things at the same time. From your main ribbon, you've got this little arrow here, this select arrow. And if I click and turn that on, I can now click and drag a rectangle around the objects that I wish to select. And now that they're all selected, I can move them. Now, you can I'm using my right arrow key on my keypad to move all these at the same time. And if you want to move something ever so slightly, it's called micro nudge. Your Control key down, and then your left or right key, and that moves everything ever so slightly. The next thing I could do is I could group all these buttons. So I just right clicked and I can go to group, or it's probably the easiest way. So now that's one object, and I can center all these buttons back to my main phone. So I'm going to go back to this toolbar here, the formatting toolbar, and I'm going to align that to the center. So now they're all aligned to the center. Now what you're probably going to want to do, I'm going to ungroup those guys because I want to work on them individually now. I want to put numbers inside here. So I recommend you use word art for that. Now I've put a whole bunch of shortcuts on this toolbar here, but I'll do the old-fashioned way here. We're going to go back to insert and word art, and here's my recommendation for numbers. Just choose this straight text here, type the number 1, hit OK, then your number comes in, and once it comes in, I would probably fill it to black. I'd probably make it black outline with black or whatever color you happen to choose. And if it's not moving on you, change your text wrapping, go to the dog, ask for it to go to the front. Now I can move this pretty much anywhere I want. First, I'm going to want to size it. Not only because you need 1 all the way to 0, so you're going to want this to fit inside your button. Once you find a size that fits, I would simply copy and paste that number. So without changing the number, I would simply just copy and paste that. As many times as you need to. I wasn't really counting there. And then when you move it, I'm going to double click here to bring up my word art, and then I'm just going to edit the text. And then change the 1 to 2, and then hit OK. And that will allow you to quickly and easily create all your numbers. Lastly, you're going to want to put these numbers right in the middle of these buttons. So I'm going to edit that to 3. Let's say I won't do them all for the sake of brevity here. But if I want this centered to my button, I need to select both objects and once again go to Align and Align Center, and then Align and Align Middle. So now I know my 3 is perfectly centered inside of my button. I'm going to be looking for that kind of precision. I'm going to be looking for that kind of quality. And then once that's done and that button is perfect, you may want to group that button. Now before you group it, if you want it to be colored, you'll want to color it first and then group it. So now that button is one object. When you've perfectly done all of your buttons, I would group all the buttons together as well. What we're doing is we're creating our own clip art kind of from scratch using all these tools in Microsoft Office Word. Remember, if you accidentally put something behind that you didn't want behind, you've got these buttons here. You got bring to front, bring to back. So if you created your screen first and then you put your phone over top of it by mistake, okay, and your screen doesn't show, you'll want to bring it to the front, and then so your screen comes back up. You might want a little antenna over here. Use your creativity for that. You can use, I believe, a rectangle and a circle to create that kind of an effect. So you put a rectangle here, and then you can put a little circle on top of it. Now mine's not going to be perfect, but you get the gist. If you're not able to move your objects exactly where you want them to, there's a reason for that. There's an invisible grid in the background, and you may need to turn that grid off, and you would do that from here, from Align, Grid Settings. It's automatically allowing you to line things up easily. You'll find that things are lining up kind of automatically. It's because this is on. If you turn this on, you can then move things very, very, very subtly, even with your mouse. And until you change that, until you turn that off, you're going to find that you're not going to be able to put small things exactly where you want it to. So once again, by double clicking on this drawing toolbar format, this ribbon comes up, and it was in Align and it was in Grid Settings. So those are the major features that you need to know in order to accomplish this. You can use colors, you can use shadings, you can use whatever shapes you want. I don't want any clip art.